because, you know, we're here in Flanders, that I would try to read in Dutch for you from my book Will Grayson, Will Grayson, which in Dutch is called Will Grayson, Will Grayson. Will Grayson, I don't know. Tonic Klein, good so far. Was zij mijn vader altijd tegen mij wil? Je kunt in je neus plukken. Je kunt in je neus plukken waar je vriend bij is. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna read you in English. So I'm going to read you a little bit from chapter 1 of my novel, Will Grayson, Will Grayson, and then I'm going to, if we have extra time, I'm going to read you a little bit of my new novel, which will come out next year. This is how it sounds in my mind. When I was little, my dad used to tell me, Will, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. That seemed like a reasonably astute observation to me when I was 8, but it turns out to be incorrect on a few levels. To begin with, you cannot possibly pick your friends, or else I never would have ended up with Tiny Cooper. Tiny Cooper is not the world's gayest person, and he is not the world's largest person. But I believe he may be the world's largest person who is really, really gay, and also the world's gayest person who is really, really large. Tiny has been my best friend since 5th grade, except for all of last semester, when he was busy discovering the sheer scope of his own gayness, and I was busy having an actual, honest-to-God group of friends, for the first time in my life, who ended up never talking to me again, due to 2 slight transgressions. Number 1, after some school board member got all upset about gays in the locker room, I defended Tiny Cooper's right to be both gigantic, and therefore the best member of our crappy football team's offensive line, and gay, in a letter to the school newspaper that I stupidly signed. 2, this guy in the group of friends named Clint was talking about the letter at lunch, and in the process of talking about it, he called me a bitch squealer. And I didn't know what a bitch squealer was, so I was like, what do you mean? And then he called me a bitch squealer again, at which point I told him to screw off and then took my tray and left. Which I guess means that technically I left the group of friends, although it felt the other way around. Honestly, none of them ever seemed to like me, but they were around, which isn't nothing. And now they aren't around, leaving me utterly bereft of social peers. Unless you count Tiny, that is, which I suppose I must. So a few weeks after we get back from Christmas vacation our junior year, I'm sitting in my assigned seat in pre-calc when Tiny waltzes in wearing his football jersey tucked into his chinos, even though football season is long over. Every day, Tiny miraculously manages to wedge himself into the tiny chair desk beside mine in pre-calc, and every day, I am amazed that he can do it. So Tiny squeezes into the chair, I am duly amazed, and then he turns to me and whispers really loudly, because secretly he wants other people to hear, I'm in love. I roll my eyes, because Tiny falls in love every hour on the hour with some poor new boy. They all look the same, skinny and sweaty and tan. The last an abomination, because February tans in Chicago are always fake, and boys who fake tan, I don't care whether they're gay, are ridiculous. You're so cynical, Tiny says, waving his hand at me. I'm not cynical, Tiny, I answer. I'm practical. You're a robot, he says. Tiny thinks I'm incapable of what humans call emotion because I have not cried since my 7th birthday, when I saw the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven. I suppose I should have known from the title that it was going to end poorly, but in my defense, I was 7. Anyway, I haven't cried since then. I lost my place. I don't really understand the point of crying. Also, I feel like crying is almost, like aside from the deaths of relatives or whatever, totally avoidable if you just follow 2 very simple rules. 1, don't care too much, and 2, shut up. Everything unfortunate that's ever happened to me has stemmed from my failure to follow one of those 2 rules. I know love is real because I feel it. Tiny says. Apparently classes started without our knowing because Mr. Applebaum, who is ostensibly trying to teach us pre-calculus, but is mostly teaching me that pain and suffering must be endured stoically, says, "You feel what, Tiny?" "Love," says Tiny. "I feel love." And everyone turns around and either laughs or groans at Tiny. And because I'm sitting next to him, and he's my best and only friend, they're laughing and groaning at me too, which is precisely why I would never choose Tiny Cooper as my friend. I'm going to skip ahead now.